Joining me today, I have Simon Marcotte from Northern Superior Resources. Simon, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So something I've been asking the guests that we've had on is when we're looking at this conference here, we're at a precious metals conference. Gold is hitting all-time highs. They were hitting them yesterday, hitting them again this morning. Yet we're not seeing a whole lot of enthusiasm, excitement. There's definitely a disconnect between the gold prices and the equities.
Yes.
What's your read on what's happening here?
Well, first of all, if you ask what the buzz is here at the conference, it is like I haven't seen it for probably 10 years, okay. Right? Because you're starting to see quite a bit of M&A, yeah. Right? So people get acquired, they need to reinvest the capital, so new ideas are being chased. To your point that gold's going up, but the stock price are not reflecting that, that really reminds me of the oil stocks in the late 90s, okay. Right? The oil stocks in the late 90s were extremely cheap. Yeah. And the reasoning was oil is not sustainable at 12. The world can't function with oil above 10. It went to 140. Yeah. And at some point, the oil stocks started to catch up to the oil valuation. Yeah. And even at some point, they were paying a premium, yeah. Right? When you saw Barrick buy an oil company, okay. Right? So I think we're just about to see this. And let's keep in mind that gold has been making new high, but it shouldn't have because the real rates were going up. Yep. When the real rate starts going down, then the Western investor will join the world, the global central banks. And I think the price of gold will accelerate. And like you said, we're already seeing it. Mm-hmm. But when the real rates start to go down, then you're going to have a lot of capital chasing the equity, especially that we're starting to see more M&As than torpedoes in the space, right? So I think the excitement is definitely here, and the next year or two are going to be great performing. And the equity in gold haven't been this cheap versus relative valuation to the rest of the equity market since the 1950s. So yeah, it's a volatile sector and it hurts sometimes, but there's a reason why a lot of hospitals and research centers downtown Toronto are named after mining executives, because there's a lot of money to be made in these cycles, right? So we're starting it now.
A theme I keep hearing, just from having conversations with friends and people that I see at the conference, is that, well, the reason that there's not that much capital flowing in is because this sector has done such a terrible job of giving ROI to investors.
Yes.
And something I think a lot about is the reason that we have terrible ROI because there's not enough capital, or is the reason that there's not enough capital because we give such bad ROI in the industry?
Well, I'm not sure I have, that's a good question. I'm not sure I have the answer. But the reality now is that if you look at the gold sector and look at the free cash flow yield of the sector, it is the highest free cash flow yield of any economic sector. Right, so it's just a matter of time before the general market starts to come in, especially when the Nasdaq stops performing and the general equity market stops performing. That's where you can really have the big sector rotation. So I think the next 2 to 3 years are going to be absolutely astonishing. The money that can be made here.
So let's talk about Northern Superior Resources. My good friend Peter Grandich is a vocal shareholder and supporter of you guys. What's the high-level overview for the company?
Okay, so Northern Superior, so high level, we recently split the company in two. So Northern Superior is focused on Quebec, but we spun out our Ontario assets. So let me touch on that first a little bit. Especially that Northern Superior still owns 72% of the Ontario company, right? So it's a transition period. Obviously, you can't have a public company with one shareholder of 72%. I get that. But you can also absolutely not dividend out those shares too early because you kill the stock price, right? So it's a transition period, so we want to do things right. So company in Ontario is called IAMGOLD. It's newly listed, and that's mainly the TPK project. Okay. I don't know if you've heard of the TPK project before, but it has really a legion of followers. People are very passionate about it because there's a major discovery in the making here. So what is the TPK project? It is the largest gold and till anomaly in North America, and frankly, I would argue potentially the world.
What does that mean, gold and till?
So imagine, so it's a gold deposit that was moved over time by a glacier. Okay. right? So the glacier was moving the gold deposit, which was leaving a trail of small pieces of gold, right? So that means that you have a source of that somewhere, right? That gold deposit is somewhere. So you kind of follow the breadcrumb trail here, right? And this golden till anomaly, which is basically small pieces of gold that are disseminated in the soil, it is 11 kilometers by 6 kilometers. So it's a district scale massive discovery. And a drill hole, especially one specific drill hole that came out of it was 25 grams over 13 meters.
Wow.
Well, that starts to sound like a rock to me, right? So it looks like we're getting very close to the source here. Plus, trust me, I'm not the guy who gets excited about soil sample and stuff like that. But there's a very famous boulder that was found on this property of 727 gram a ton gold.
Okay.
You probably thought I was going to say silver, but 727 gram a ton gold. So start to pay attention, right? So it is that could be a major discovery. It is located, I would say, between Pickle Lake and the Ring of Fire, Northern Ontario. Okay. So we created a new company. It is very well funded now, and we've put together a team that is absolutely second to none, especially when it comes down to social acceptability, which is key in Ontario to make sure that we have very healthy partnerships with the local communities, and we really want to change the game there and have a very inclusive approach so that everybody could benefit. So very exciting, something to keep an eye on. But again, Northern Superior owns currently 72% of the shares of OnGold. So if OnGold's to make a big discovery, that's going to obviously benefit Northern Superior.
Okay, so let's talk about what you guys have going on in Quebec, which is the core of the
Yes.
of Northern Superior. What can you tell us about what you guys have going on in Quebec?
So we started to get involved in Quebec in the Chibougamau gold camp shortly after the discovery of Nelligan in Quebec. So Nelligan was the discovery of the year in 2019, and that completely transformed the camp. So this camp now already has a total of about 10 million ounces altogether, right? And with the work that's being done by us and by IAMGOLD, there's a lot of upside that to build on this over the next 18 to 24 months. Now, there's one specific attribute of this camp. It is that all of these deposits are so close to one another that they're perfectly suited to feed the same mill. And if you can put all these deposits into the same structure, the same company, the same joint venture, there's plenty of ways to do that, then you can design an operation that will feed the same mill. So it's the equivalent of having found a 10 million ounces deposit, probably going to 15, right? Okay. So the problem was, up to 24 months ago, all these assets were owned by 6 different companies. So obviously nothing's going to happen, right? So we took a leadership role and we did the heavy lifting to consolidate everything. So fast forward to today, those 6 companies are now 2 companies. There's IAMGOLD and then there's us, right? So IAMGOLD is now, we're very active. We just raised $8 million. That was fully underwritten by Cormark Securities. It all went institutional, to the exception of $1 million that we took down as insiders. Now the management and insiders of the company own about 25% of the company. So we just kicked off a 20,000 meter drilling program. And IAMGOLD is also quite active in the area. We can dive into that if you want. But to explain a little bit of the positioning of every deposit, so Nelligan of IAMGOLD gives you the size, the mine life. It already has 6 million ounces, and it's bulk tonnage operation that we're looking at here. So when it comes to this kind of operation, the key is to look at the payback period of a project. And that's really where we come in. We have the Filibert project, which is only 9 kilometers away from Nelligan. So that really deserves to be together, I think, right? Because you can imagine a mill, in between, that's only 5 kilometers of trucking distance. The pit of Nelligan is 3 kilometers long. The pit of Filibert's 4 kilometers long. So it gives you an idea of that puts things into context that it deserves to be together. But the grade of Filibert is 25% higher. And I would also argue, if you look into the sensitivity table of our resource, that if you pump up the cutoff grade just a tiny bit from 0.35 to 0.5, we don't lose much ounces at all, yet our grade becomes 50% greater than Nelligan. So if you start by mining that, then you can significantly reduce the payback period. The metallurgy of Filibert is also very, very strong. So if you consolidate everything, you can not only optimize the grade, but you can optimize the metallurgy. And that camp then becomes viable, right? So we've done a lot of the heavy lifting. One more step to go. There's plenty of ways to structure these things, but I think there's so much money to be made here that you can trust the industry to find a way to do it.
Okay, so let's just talk about the whole district.
Sure.
It's basically Chibougamau.
Chibougamau.
Chibougamau. Yes. Okay, so we're talking about the Chibougamau Gold District. We got IAMGOLD, and basically you've consolidated everything else. So how many ounces have been found so far? And when you're talking about this consolidation plan, which makes a lot of sense, by the way, we always see these companies are coming along, they're treasure hunters, and like maybe they're going to get 1/6 of what you're looking to do, and it's just like, if you're a junior mining investor, how much more dilution is going to come? What's the real plan here? I like the plan that you have going on, but let's talk about that district. Are you guys looking at building your own mill, or are you guys looking at partnering with IAMGOLD on that?
Well, like I said, there's many different ways to make that happen, right? So we'll see how that the structure that will ultimately end up being. So I think it's too early to say what it's going to be. I mean, I certainly have my idea of what I'd like to do, but so we'll see where we get. But right now, we're still at the point of growing the ounces, and like I said, we need to find a way to put it together. But I'll mention that IAMGOLD has greatly increased their activities in the camp, right? So first, they recently bought Vanstar. So let me touch on that a little bit. So Vanstar was the company who discovered Nelligan at first. And up to 6 months ago, it was a joint venture between IAMGOLD and Vanstar, 75-25. And IAMGOLD acquired Vanstar, right? So clearly, if you're about to move into the camp and create value, you probably want to make this acquisition before you do any of that. But more importantly, Vanstar had a royalty on Nelligan, and they also had the free carry to production, right? Which was very valuable to Vanstar. But now that IAMGOLD bought it, the royalty and the free carry has been removed. So all of a sudden now, Nelligan is a lot more valuable. It's in a much better structure, right?
Make more sense.
Yeah. So IAMGOLD acquired Vanstar. That was in December 2023. So a bit more than 6 months ago.
And that's around 6 million ounces of indicated and inferred.
That's right. That's correct. And I believe there's a lot more to be found there, right? Like I said, the key will be to lower the payback by putting everything together. Then IAMGOLD is also currently drilling at Nelligan. They are currently drilling at Monster Lake that they also have in the area. They said that they have a new resource update that they'll be publishing in the coming few months, probably by year end. They are also drilling at Anik, which doesn't have ounces yet, but it's roughly between their Nelligan and our Filibert, right? And it's actually in the same trend as Filibert. They also recently acquired a project called Le Lac à l'eau jaune, the lake with the yellow water, and that's between their Monster Lake and our Chevrier project. So you can see that they're devoting a lot of attention, right? And National Bank recently published a note, and you probably know that National Bank was the lead underwriter for the $300 million US of equity financing that IAMGOLD did. That was to buy back the Sumitomo ownership, so great transaction. And then National Bank, shortly after that, published a note about the Chibougamau Gold Camp and mentioning that there was a lot of value that was not recognized in the stock of IAMGOLD, and they were saying this is a clear avenue of growth for IAMGOLD, their next stage of growth. And National Bank was arguing that this camp, is now viable, and therefore it should be worth about $100 per ounce in the ground, just like Val-d'Or is. Right, so National Bank says this camp is worth about $100 per ounce. They acquired Vanstar for $40 per ounce. Northern Superior is currently valued at about $20 per ounce, and we tend to find ounces at around $10 an ounce, right? So the work that we're about to do is very, very accretive because we're finding ounces historically at 10, we're valued at 20, the above vents are at 40, National Bank says it's worth 100. So very good times ahead.
So if I'm an investor in Northern Superior, or I am watching this and I'm going, okay, this seems like the kind of asset package that somebody's going to want to take a bite of. One of the majors, we know M&A is getting hot as valuations are pretty suppressed, and I know you can't come on here and talk about the calls you've been getting of people kicking tires, but I'm certain that those are happening. Even
Yes.
So
it's happening all around us, so it's got to be happening home too.
What am I looking out for over the next year from the company? I see you guys got a 20,000 meter drill program.
Yep.
When are we going to start to get those results? What should I be watching if I'm interested in your company and I'm trying to do my due diligence?
Yep. So, but first of all, to your point, absolutely. There's a lot of, I mean, you saw Cisco Mining being acquired, right, for a nice valuation. And that creates a situation where those shareholders are looking, okay, where's the next step, right?
Yep.
Who's next in Quebec? Who has that type of size? And we're on top of that list. I mean, Probe is a clear, great resource they just put out. But you look at a Chibougamau gold camp at already 10 million ounces. You don't have a lot of those around. You really don't. And yes, 10 million ounces in Quebec. You're absolutely right. Someone is going to do something with it,
Yep.
right? So right now, as we obviously continue to position the company correctly, strategically for the camp, we just raised the money, as I mentioned, 20,000 meters of drilling. So we're doing a drilling campaign now that we just started drilling. When the results will be coming out, well, that depends on how long the turnaround at the lab is going to be. But there's going to be a flow of news, and then we're also going to do a drilling campaign in the winter, mostly to the west of Filibert, and then you're looking at a resource update probably in the summer. Okay. So we are mostly focused on Filibert at the moment because it is the asset that really improves the value of the camp. That's our view. So we're focused on that at the moment.
All right, well, Simon, thanks very much for hopping on here. I think you guys have the perfect kind of project for investors that are going down that capital flow list and saying, we got those sort of, those mid tiers, and then we got those packages that those mid tiers ought to be looking at, or even a major looking at. And it sounds like you guys are going to be that perfect sort of asset package that I imagine there's going to be a lot of interest in. So if I'm a junior investor, this is definitely a name I want to keep an eye on, and hopefully you'll hop back on here in the future and we can chat as you guys continue to execute your strategy and get some of those drill results.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be back. Thanks for having me, Steve.
Thanks,
Good
Simon.
to see you.